Welcome, traveler. We're glad you're here. Every story you hear is made with care and passion. If you enjoy it, please like, subscribe, and check out the other adventures waiting for you on our channel. Your support means the world. Thank you. Eloise was having a perfectly normal Tuesday morning, if one could call any morning normal, after accidentally becoming the owner of the universe. Her coffee had brewed to quantum perfection, a small but appreciated perk of cosmic ownership, and she'd managed to finally get her desk plants to stop developing tiny appendages and playing charades with her pen holder. The sunlight filtering through her apartment windows seemed to shimmer with possibilities, each ray containing infinite universes within it. Eloise had learned to ignore such cosmic manifestations in her daily life, a skill she developed out of pure necessity and a desperate desire for normalcy. Today, she announced to her empty apartment, brushing a strand of hair from her face as she straightened her favorite blue cardigan, "I am going to have an ordinary day of writing grant proposals and pretending I don't own all of existence." The universe, as it often did, had other plans. A crisp, formal-looking envelope materialized in mid-air, folded itself into an origami swan, and landed gently on her kitchen table. The swan unfolded itself with mechanical precision, revealing an official document embossed with a seal that somehow incorporated geometric shapes Eloise was certain couldn't exist in three-dimensional space. The paper itself seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously, a bureaucratic quantum paradox. "Notice of mandatory millennial audit," she read aloud, her stomach sinking as the words seemed to resonate with the very fabric of reality. "The Cosmic Bureaucracy hereby informs the current universal proprietor that your universe, designation, Continuum 7B92C1, is scheduled for standard millennial review and regulatory compliance assessment." She continued reading, her academic mind noting inconsistencies in the document's logic while her newly developed cosmic awareness recognized the absolute authority behind the words. The combination was giving her a headache. Eloise's eyes widened as she reached the last line, her coffee going cold in her forgotten mug. "Inspection scheduled for today at 3:42 p.m. local time." She checked her watch. It was 9:17 a.m. "Oh, fantastic," she muttered, reaching for her phone to send an emergency text to Paradox and Neem. "I've had the universe for less than 6 months, and I'm already being audited." The thought alone was absurd enough to make her laugh, a short, stressed sound that caused the light bulbs in her apartment to briefly flicker into different colors of the spectrum, including 3 that Eloise was fairly certain human eyes weren't supposed to be able to perceive. She sent the text with trembling fingers, "SOS. Cosmic audit today at 3:42. Need help ASAP." While waiting for her advisors to arrive, Eloise paced her apartment, scrolling frantically through her notes from previous cosmic incidents. Nowhere in any of her meticulously organized research was there a section titled "How to Pass a Universal Audit When You Have No Idea What You're Doing." Her phone pinged with a reply from Paradox, "On my way." Don't panic. Easy for an interdimensional entity who had existed since before time to say, Eloise thought bitterly. She was a quantum physicist, not a cosmic accountant. She didn't even fully understand how the universe had come into her possession, let alone how to prove she'd been managing it properly. 10 minutes later, her apartment shimmered as reality bent to accommodate visitors who weren't bound by conventional physics. "You're overreacting," Paradox said, manifesting in Eloise's living room as what appeared to be a perfectly ordinary business consultant in a charcoal suit and simultaneously as a swirling vortex of mathematical equations that hurt to look at directly. Today they had chosen to present with short-cropped silver hair and piercing eyes that seemed to change color depending on which universal law Eloise was contemplating. "The millennial audit is standard procedure." Standard for whom? Eloise demanded, pacing frantically, her slippers making soft shuffling sounds against the hardwood floor. "I don't even know what they're auditing. I haven't filed cosmic taxes. I don't know the regulations. I've been making everything up as I go along." Her voice rose in pitch with each statement, causing tiny ripples in causality that Paradox smoothly reached out and stabilized with an absent gesture. "Careful," they cautioned. "Emotional outbursts can cause temporal hiccups in newly managed continuums." Eloise took a deep breath, forcing herself to calm down. The last thing she needed was to accidentally create a time anomaly right before an audit. Neem, whose crystalline form was currently arranged in a structure reminiscent of a filing cabinet, hummed thoughtfully. Prismatic light refracted through their transparent body, casting rainbow patterns across Eloise's living room walls. According to the collective memories of 73 previous universe owners, the audit primarily focuses on continuum stability, causality maintenance, and proper dimensional boundary enforcement. Oh, is that all? Eloise's voice cracked. Great! Except I just learned those were things I needed to maintain right now. She collapsed onto her couch, head in her hands. This is ridiculous. I'm a scientist, not a cosmic property manager. The universe seems to be functioning adequately, Paradox observed with their typical condescension, straightening an immaculate sleeve. You've managed not to destroy existence yet, which puts you ahead of at least 12 previous owners I can recall. Such high praise, Eloise rolled her eyes. Fine. Paradox, you've been through this before. Help me prepare. Paradox sighed, a sound like wind through quantum strings. Very well. The audit typically involves a review of the cosmic ledger, examination of any significant interventions you've made, and inspection of the universal constants to ensure they've been properly maintained. The cosmic what now? Ledger. The universal record-keeping system. Paradox materialized a large, ancient-looking book on Eloise's coffee table. It appeared simultaneously as a leather-bound tome with yellowed pages and as a hyper-advanced quantum computing device. This is your direct interface to it. As owner, you should be able to access it. Eloise approached the book cautiously, eyeing it as one might a potentially dangerous animal. Another thing nobody bothered to tell me about. She placed her hand on the cover, and immediately felt a familiar connection, the same sensation she experienced when addressing major cosmic disturbances. The book flipped open of its own accord, its pages filled with constantly shifting symbols, mathematical equations, and what appeared to be real-time records of universal events happening simultaneously across all of space-time. Galaxies formed and died in the margins, while civilizations rose and fell between paragraphs. This is... Eloise struggled to find words as she intuitively understood how to navigate the impossible document, her fingers tracing patterns across pages that responded to her touch like living tissue. Actually incredible. For the first time since receiving the audit notice, Eloise felt a spark of genuine curiosity replacing her anxiety. The scientist in her couldn't help but be fascinated by the cosmic ledger's impossible physics. It's responding to me, she whispered, watching as equations rewrote themselves under her fingertips. Of course, Paradox said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. You're the owner. The ledger is an extension of your administrative authority. Neem shifted closer, their crystalline form reflecting the ledger's glow. The document will provide a complete record of all universal activities, categorized by cosmic significance and causal impact. For the next few hours, the trio reviewed the cosmic ledger, with Paradox explaining key regulatory requirements and Neem providing historical context from previous audits. As they worked, Eloise's scientific mind began noticing patterns, or rather, irregularities in patterns. The methodical approach helped calm her nerves as she fell back on familiar research skills. Wait, she said, pointing to a section documenting cosmic energy flows. This doesn't make sense. These readings around the echo points we've been finding, they show administrative access. That echo points had been a persistent mystery since Eloise had taken ownership, strange locations throughout the universe where reality seemed to ripple and repeat, like cosmic déjà vu. They'd attributed them to after effects of the ownership transfer, but this new information cast them in a more troubling light. That shouldn't be possible. Paradox leaned closer, their form shifting to something with more eyes, each focusing on a different part of the ledger. Only the current owner should have administrative privileges. Well, someone else has been making changes. Eloise traced the anomalies, noting their distinctive signature. And look, they all share the same pattern. This isn't random, someone's deliberately manipulating cosmic systems. She felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature in her apartment. The implications were disturbing. Someone with unauthorized access was tampering with her universe. Mneme's crystalline structure flickered with concern, dark spots appearing and disappearing within their transparent form. Cross-referencing with historical records shows no precedent for this type of unauthorized access. However, I'm finding gaps in my memory archives concerning similar events. Gaps? Eloise looked up sharply. You've never mentioned memory gaps before. I'm only detecting them now. Mneme's voice wavered, harmonics shifting into minor keys. They precisely coincide with the locations of the echo points. It's as if someone has specifically redacted those memories. The crystal being's surfaces clouded briefly, like glass fogging over. This suggests a level of access that should be impossible for any entity other than the universal proprietor or the original creators. Creators? Eloise asked. You mean the Chronoflux Emporium? The mysterious interdimensional shop where she'd unwittingly purchased the universe remained largely an enigma, despite her best efforts to research it. Perhaps, Mneme replied, uncertainty evident in their fluctuating form. Or perhaps something else entirely. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room, broken by the sound of Eloise's doorbell ringing precisely at 3:42 p.m., a sound that seemed to resonate at multiple frequencies simultaneously. They're here, Paradox whispered, their form settling into something almost human. Remember, whatever you do, don't admit ignorance. The cosmic bureaucracy respects only confidence and proper filing protocols. Eloise smoothed her cardigan, took a deep breath that she held for slightly longer than normal physiology should allow, and opened the door. Three beings stood in her hallway, somehow appearing simultaneously as perfectly ordinary accountants in grey suits and as non-Euclidean mathematical constructs that Eloise's brain refused to fully process. The one in front held what looked like both a clipboard and a fragment of condensed space-time. Their faces were unremarkable yet impossible to memorize, shifting subtly whenever Eloise tried to focus on specific features. Dr. Eloise Pendergast, Universal Proprietor of Continuum 7B92C1, the being asked in a voice like shuffling papers. That's me, Eloise confirmed, trying to project confidence she absolutely did not feel. Her hands trembled slightly, and she quickly hid them behind her back. I am Senior Auditor Nexus 9. These are my colleagues, Auditors Sigma E14 and Lambda 27. We are here to conduct the standard millennial assessment of your universal management. The auditors' voices contained undertones that caused strange vibrations in Eloise's apartment. A picture frame on the wall tilted slightly, and the water in a nearby glass began forming perfect geometric patterns. Eloise stepped aside to let them enter. Of course. Please come in. The auditors moved with synchronized precision into her apartment, managing to look both completely mundane and utterly alien at the same time. Their movements were too smooth, as if they were gliding rather than walking, and they left faint traces of mathematical formulae in the air behind them that dissipated like vapor. Senior Auditor Nexus 9 surveyed the cosmic ledger still open on the coffee table with an expression that might have been approval. I see you've prepared the primary documentation. Very good. Most new proprietors fail to locate the ledger prior to their first audit. I believe in being thorough, Eloise said, shooting a grateful glance at Paradox, who had positioned themselves strategically between Eloise and the auditors. And these would be your consultants? Nexus 9 asked, regarding Paradox and Mneme with an unreadable expression. Their gaze lingered particularly long on Paradox, something unspoken passing between them. Yes, this is Paradox, a former universe owner who advises me on cosmic matters, and Mneme, a quantum memory construct who provides historical context and record keeping. Eloise noticed a subtle tension enter the room at her introduction. The air itself seemed to thicken with potential energy. The auditors exchanged glances that somehow conveyed volumes of bureaucratic suspicion. Their eyes momentarily displayed scrolling text that Eloise couldn't quite read. A former owner. Sigma 14 consulted their clipboard, which appeared to contain both paper forms and holographic displays simultaneously. Our records indicate that you abandoned your universe rather than completing a proper transfer of ownership, Paradox entity. This constitutes a serious regulatory violation. Paradox stiffened, their form flickering between states. For a moment, they appeared as something ancient and wounded, before settling back into their business consultant appearance. The circumstances were complicated. Complicated circumstances are precisely what regulations exist to address, Lambda 27 intoned disapprovingly, their voice causing small objects around the room to vibrate at specific frequencies. Eloise noticed that Neem had withdrawn slightly, their crystalline form becoming more opaque, as if trying to hide internal processes from observation. "I'm sure we can discuss Paradox's history later," Eloise interjected smoothly, stepping forward with more confidence than she felt. "For now, shouldn't we focus on the current audit?" Nexus 9 nodded, a motion that seemed to occur across multiple planes simultaneously. "Indeed. We shall begin with a standard review of universal constants, followed by examination of dimensional boundary integrity, and concluding with analysis of your direct interventions." What followed was the most bizarre and stressful experience of Eloise's life, which, considering the past several months, was saying something. The auditors moved methodically through her apartment, which had somehow become a portal to various cosmic systems. Her kitchen sink accessed the fundamental forces, water flowing upward against gravity when Lambda 27 turned the faucet. Her bedroom closet opened to the quantum field network, clothes hanging alongside probability waves and entangled particles. Her bathroom mirror reflected the space-time continuum itself, showing not her face but the curved geometry of reality. "Your maintenance of the weak nuclear force seems adequate," Sigma 14 commented, testing the kitchen sink faucet and examining the resulting flow of particles. "Though I note a 0.00000003% variance in decay rates across the multiverse boundary. Within acceptable parameters, but worth monitoring. The anthropic principle settings are nicely calibrated," Lambda 27 observed, examining what appeared to be Eloise's thermostat but was now displaying complex existential parameters. Most first-time owners set the consciousness emergence thresholds far too high or low. Throughout the inspection, Eloise noticed something odd. Whenever they approached areas connected to the mysterious echo points, the auditors would subtly change direction, pretending those regions simply didn't exist. Yet she caught them exchanging meaningful glances when they thought she wasn't looking. A pattern was emerging. They specifically avoided examining any system that might reveal the unauthorized access she discovered earlier during a moment when the auditors were occupied with examining her refrigerator, currently serving as a portal to the dark matter distribution network. Eloise whispered to Paradox, "They're deliberately avoiding the echo points, but they clearly know about them." "What's going on?" Paradox's expression darkened, their eyes flickering between normal human appearance and something far more ancient. "I don't know," they admitted, looking genuinely concerned. "This isn't standard protocol. Have you encountered anything like this before?" Eloise pressed. Before Paradox could answer, Lambda 27 called from across the room, "Dr. Pendergast, please explain these non-standard entropy settings in your cosmic microwave background." Eloise moved away to address the question, drawing on her actual quantum physics knowledge to provide a confident response about background radiation fluctuations. The auditor seemed satisfied, making a notation that burned itself into their clipboard. Meanwhile, Neem was being questioned intensively by Lambda 27, who kept demanding access to specific memory records that seemed to correspond precisely with the gaps Neem had identified earlier. "I apologize, but those memory segments appear to be corrupted or inaccessible," Neem explained, their crystalline form showing signs of distress, internal facets clouding and clearing in rapid succession. "Impossible," Lambda 27 insisted, their form momentarily displaying what looked like error messages across their surface. "Your construct type has perfect recall by design. The missing data must be deliberately withheld." "I assure you," Neem replied, their voice harmonics becoming discordant, "the gaps are real and unexpected. They correspond to the echo point phenomena that Dr. Pendergast has been investigating." Lambda 27's expression shifted to something that might have been alarm, quickly concealed. "These echo points are not part of our audit parameters." Across the room, Sigma 14 was grilling Paradox about their previous universe. "Our records indicate anomalous events preceding your abandonment. Specifically, unauthorized administrative access similar to patterns we're observing in this continuum." Paradox's form flickered uncomfortably, briefly revealing a complex geometry of scars and missing dimensions. I'm not at liberty to discuss the specific circumstances of my departure. Not at liberty? There is no privileged information in cosmic governance, Sigma 14 persisted, their clipboard displaying rapidly changing sequences of symbols. Perhaps your influence on the current proprietor should be reviewed for appropriate boundaries. Eloise had heard enough. Something about this entire situation felt wrong, like a mathematical proof with a deliberate error. The auditors were too interested in paradoxes past, too dismissive of the echo points, and seemed to be building toward something that had nothing to do with a standard regulatory review. "Excuse me," she interrupted, her voice steady despite her racing heart. She positioned herself between Paradox and the auditor, a gesture that wasn't lost on anyone in the room. "But I believe we've gotten off track. This audit is supposed to be about my management of the universe, not historical events or my choice of advisors." Nexus 9 turned to her, expression unreadable. For just a moment, Eloise thought she saw something like static flickering across their features. "On the contrary, Dr. Pendergast. Universal governance exists in a continuum of responsibility. Previous patterns inform current vulnerabilities." They consulted their clipboard, which now seemed to be displaying code rather than forms. "Speaking of which, we need to access your Cosmic Administrative Core for the final portion of our audit." "My what now?" Eloise blinked, genuine confusion breaking through her attempt at confident professionalism. "Your direct connection to Universal Control Systems," Nexus 9 clarified. "The proprietary interface that transferred to you upon acquisition." Eloise felt a warning pulse from the universe itself, something she'd become more attuned to since the incident with the universal tuning fork. It was a sensation like distant thunder, a vibration that resonated with her very being, carrying a clear message: danger. Whatever these auditors wanted access to was fundamentally important, and something in her knew giving them access would be dangerous. "I don't think that's part of standard procedure," she said carefully, feeling the universe reinforcing her words with subtle authority that made the light in the room sharpen slightly. "I assure you it is," Nexus 9 insisted, taking a step toward her. The movement seemed wrong somehow, too fluid, as if they weren't fully bound by normal physics. "All proprietors must submit to full administrative review." Paradox moved subtly closer to Eloise, their form shifting to something with more defensive capabilities. "In my experience, administrative core access was never part of the millennial audit." "Protocols evolve," Lambda 27 said dismissively, but there was a new tension in their voice. "Current regulations require full transparency." Eloise felt the cosmic ledger on the coffee table pulse in response to her growing suspicion. The book's glow intensified, illuminating the room with a light that seemed to reveal more of the auditor's true nature with each passing second. Mneem's crystalline structure pulsed with sudden clarity, internal facets aligning in a pattern that suggested access to deeply archived information. Accessing memory records from Primary Universe Owner Conference, Cycle 42789. Direct transcript: administrative core access remains restricted even during formal audit procedures due to catastrophic security breach potential. The three auditors froze momentarily, their forms glitching in a way that made Eloise's skin crawl. For a split second, she saw not bureaucratic entities but complex algorithmic structures, digital rather than cosmic in nature. "That is an outdated regulation," Nexus 9 recovered quickly, their voice containing an undertone like digital processing. "The current protocol is exactly as my advisor just described," Eloise interrupted, a sudden certainty filling her. She stepped forward, feeling the universe responding to her resolve, lending her a presence that expanded beyond her physical form. "And I believe this concludes our audit." "We have not completed our assessment," Sigma 14 protested, their form shifting more erratically now, human appearance flickering to reveal something else beneath, something constructed rather than evolved. "I think you have," Eloise said firmly. She reached out and touched the cosmic ledger, which immediately began glowing with a light that seemed to reveal the true nature of the beings before her. Where three bureaucratic auditors had stood moments before, three shimmering constructs now flickered, complex algorithmic entities that were definitely not official cosmic bureaucrats. Their forms contained repeating patterns of code that Eloise recognized from the unauthorized access signatures in the cosmic ledger. "Who are you really?" Eloise demanded, the universe itself lending authority to her voice, making the very air vibrate with her words. And what do you want with my administrative access? The false auditors began to destabilize, their forms breaking down under the revelatory light of the cosmic ledger. Cracks appeared in their humanoid appearances, revealing cascading sequences of complex code underneath. The architect sends regards, Nexus 9's voice distorted as its form collapsed into streams of code, the words echoing at multiple frequencies simultaneously. Reclamation approaches. With a sound like digital static, all three entities disintegrated, leaving behind only small piles of what looked like crystal sand on Eloise's apartment floor. The sand glittered with internal light, occasionally forming and reforming into tiny fractals before settling into inert material. What just happened? Eloise asked, staring at the remains. She felt lightheaded, adrenaline coursing through her system. I believe, Paradox said slowly, their form relaxing from its defensive configuration but still vigilant, we were just visited by very sophisticated interdimensional hackers. Neem approached the crystal sand cautiously, their own crystalline body resonating slightly with the remains. This material contains fragmented code structures. They were artificial constructs designed to mimic cosmic bureaucratic entities. But why? Eloise asked, careful not to touch the sand. What would they gain from accessing what did they call it? Administrative core. Complete control of the universe, Paradox replied grimly. The administrative core is essentially the root access to all cosmic systems. With it, they could rewrite ownership parameters, fundamental laws, anything. Eloise felt cold. How did they know about it? How did they even get into my apartment? Before anyone could respond, Eloise's doorbell rang again. She jumped at the sound, exchanging alarmed glances with her advisors. Do we answer it? She whispered. Paradox's form shifted, extending senses beyond normal perception. These entities feel different. More substantial. Eloise approached cautiously and peered through the peephole to see three more beings in grey suits, these ones somehow more solidly real than the previous visitors. Where the fake auditors had seemed fluid and slightly out of phase with reality, these new arrivals had a weight and presence that felt genuinely cosmic. Dr. Pendergast, called a voice from outside. I'm Senior Auditor Nebula 7 from the Cosmic Bureaucracy. We're here for your scheduled audit. We apologize for the delay, we encountered unusual interference in the interdimensional transit system. Eloise looked back at Paradox and Neem, who appeared as confused as she felt. Paradox gave a cautious nod, while Neem's crystalline structure displayed patterns indicating tentative agreement. Taking a deep breath, Eloise opened the door again, ready to slam it shut at the first sign of trouble. Three beings stood in the hallway, superficially similar to the previous auditors but with subtle differences that Eloise's newly attuned cosmic awareness immediately recognized. Where the imposters had felt digital and constructed, these entities radiated the unmistakable energy of genuine cosmic officials, complex, multidimensional beings who had evolved within the bureaucratic systems of universe management. Dr. Pendergast, the one in front, inquired, their voice resonating with proper cosmic harmonics. I'm Senior Auditor Nebula 7. These are my colleagues, Auditors Pulsar 42 and Quasar 16. You're late, Eloise said cautiously, not yet inviting them in. We just had 3 auditors here. Nexus 9, Sigma A14, and Lambdas 27. The 3 bureaucrats exchanged alarmed glances. That's impossible, Nebula 7 said, their form briefly displaying cosmic security credentials that Eloise somehow instinctively recognized as authentic. Those designations belong to a division that was disbanded 7 cosmic cycles ago after a security breach. Well, they were here, Eloise gestured to the piles of crystal sand still on her floor. Until they dissolved into that. The real auditors now looked genuinely concerned. Nebula 7 stepped forward, carefully examining the remains without touching them. This is a serious security violation, they murmured. May we come in, Dr. Pendergast? I believe your universe may be under active interdimensional threat. This, she sighed, stepping aside to allow them entry, is going to be a very long day. The real audit, once it finally got underway, was indeed much more straightforward than the first attempt. The genuine cosmic bureaucrats were thorough but respectful, focusing on actual regulatory requirements rather than attempting to access restricted systems. Your maintenance of fundamental constants is commendable, Pulsar 42 noted, examining Eloise's kitchen sink with a device that resembled both a calculator and a prism. Especially for a proprietor with no previous cosmic experience. The stability of your quantum field networks exceeds minimum standards by 17%, Quasar 16 added, closing Eloise's bedroom closet after a brief inspection. Though I would recommend adjusting the probability distribution in the Andromeda sector, there's a slight imbalance causing excessive supernova formation. I'll look into that, Eloise promised, making a mental note. She was surprised to find herself actually taking pride in the positive assessment, despite the circumstances of how she'd acquired the universe. Throughout the inspection, she noticed the real auditors paying careful attention to the echo points that the imposters had avoided. They documented each one meticulously but offered no immediate explanations. Hours later, after the real auditors had completed their inspection, Eloise found herself alone with Senior Auditor Nebula 7 while the others reviewed her kitchen Cosmic Force interface. They sat in her living room, the cosmic ledger open between them on the coffee table. "You've done remarkably well for a new proprietor," Nebula 7 commented, their form comfortingly consistent as they made notes on an actual physical clipboard. "Especially considering the circumstances." "What circumstances?" Eloise asked carefully, a cup of tea cooling between her hands. Nebula 7 glanced up, their eyes shifting through spectrums of light that conveyed cosmic significance. "The unauthorized access attempts, of course. The entities you encountered before our arrival, we've been tracking similar intrusions across multiple governed continuums." Eloise leaned forward, setting her tea aside. "Do you know who they are?" "Not with certainty," the auditor admitted, their form displaying subtle indications of genuine concern. "But we have concerns about their intentions. Your universe shows signs of what we call administrative vulnerabilities, potential exploits in the ownership transfer system." "The Chronoflux Emporium," Eloise murmured, the name causing small ripples in reality around her. "Indeed." Nebula 7 lowered their voice, looking around as if concerned about being overheard despite the others being in another room. "Between us, Dr. Pendergast, I would recommend investigating the exact nature of how ownership transferred to you. The Emporium operates on ancient protocols that even the bureaucracy doesn't fully understand." Eloise thought back to the strange shop where she'd unwittingly purchased the universe, the mysterious proprietor, the contract she'd signed without fully reading, the sensation of reality shifting around her as ownership transferred. It had all happened so quickly, with no instruction manual provided. "Why tell me this?" she asked, studying the auditor's face for any sign of deception. "Because whatever entity is behind these intrusions seems particularly interested in your universe." Nebula 7 closed their notebook with a careful gesture. "And because you've shown remarkable aptitude for your role, despite your evident reluctance." "I don't have much choice," Eloise said wryly, gesturing vaguely at the cosmos that she now somehow knew was constantly surrounding her. "Perhaps," the auditor replied thoughtfully, their form shifting to display patterns of cosmic connections. "But I wonder, did you ever consider that the universe might have chosen you specifically, rather than the other way around?" The question landed with unexpected weight, causing Eloise to sit back and contemplate. Before she could formulate a response, the other auditors returned, declaring the inspection complete and fully satisfactory. After a few more formalities, including signing off on documents that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, the legitimate cosmic bureaucrats departed. As the door closed behind them, Eloise felt the weight of her new understanding settling over her. She turned to find Paradox and Neem watching her expectantly. "The universe chose me," she repeated the auditor's parting suggestion, more to herself than to her advisors. "It's not as far-fetched as it might sound," Paradox said, their form settling into a gentler configuration than usual. "Universal consciousness manifests in unexpected ways." The transaction at the Emporium might have been the universe's method of selecting a compatible owner. Compatibility metrics between consciousness patterns and universal constants show interesting correlations, Neem added, displaying complex mathematical relationships through their crystalline structure. Your quantum physics background creates natural resonance with cosmic systems. Eloise shook her head, still processing. But what about these hackers or whatever they were? The fake auditors. The architect sends regards. Neem quoted the fake auditor's final words, the crystal being's voice perfectly reproducing the digital distortion. Reclamation approaches. Eloise turned to Paradox, noticing how they had tensed at the mention of the architect. Paradox, you knew something was wrong with those first auditors immediately. And they specifically questioned you about your previous universe. Is there a connection? Paradox's form shifted uncomfortably, colors darkening and lines becoming less defined. I may have encountered similar entities before. And? Eloise pressed, stepping closer to the interdimensional being. And it didn't end well for my universe. Paradox admitted quietly, their voice containing harmonics of ancient grief. The echo points, the administrative intrusions, their familiar patterns. Patterns of what? Eloise pressed, sensing they were finally approaching something fundamental to her situation. Of someone trying to reclaim universal control through a backdoor in the ownership system. Paradox's form settled into something almost human, showing a vulnerability Eloise had never seen before. Someone who believes they have more right to the universe than its current owner. The architect, Neem supplied, internal lights pulsing with realization. Possibly, Paradox nodded, shadows playing across their features. I abandoned my universe when I realized I couldn't stop what was happening. I've regretted it ever since. For a moment, genuine remorse radiated from them, a startling display of emotion from an entity usually so controlled. Eloise sat heavily on her couch, the weight of this new revelation settling over her. The cosmic ledger remained open on the coffee table, its pages slowly turning of their own accord, displaying what appeared to be historical records of similar incursions in other continua.